Who made the stupidest and most embarrassing mistake in history? My personal favourite is New Zealand Prime Minister Robert Muldoon getting drunk in his office one night and then calling a snap election. 2 weeks later, his government was voted out of office. Hegalochus. He was an actor performing the play Orestes by the famous playwright Euripides. In the dramatic climax, the king he was playing lay dying and is supposed to say, "After the storm I see again a calm sea," as he expires. He mispronounced the word gown as gown, changing the line to "After the storm I see again a weasel." This embarrassing mistake happened in 408 BC. It is the only thing we know about Hegalochus. It was so humiliating and so widely mocked that we're still talking about it 2,431 years later. The guys that accidentally brought down the Berlin Wall by declaring at a press conference that the right of freedom to travel was effective immediately, which was not at all what the GDR's political party had wanted, which led to thousands of people rushing to and overwhelming the borders and in the end to the reunification of Germany. It was a small mistake but with a great outcome. Robert A. Kehoe killed millions and reduced the average IQ by nearly 3 for wrongly proclaiming lead safe to use in paints, cars, etc. During the Revolutionary War in the US, I think that's the proper war's name, a spy scouted and saw George Washington crossing the Delaware River. He tried bringing the report to his commanding officer, who waved him off because he was in the middle of a poker game. Said commanding officer was found dead the next day with the report still in his coat pocket. Nikola Tesla. He had a contract with Westinghouse to get $1 for every kilowatt of power produced from his system of AC power generation. Westinghouse realized he could never make a profit and asked Real to renegotiate that rate. Tesla simply ripped up the contract. If he had agreed to just 10 cents per kilowatt, it would have been viable and Tesla would have died the richest man in human history, but instead died penniless. The Decca Records exec who decided that the Beatles were not worth signing. Franz Ferdinand's lead driver that took a wrong turn on the way to the hospital to see victims of the original assassination attempt on the Archduke. They inadvertently brought Ferdinand directly to his assassin, leading to the 20th and 21st centuries of war and death. Thomas Midgley Jr. made 2 of the biggest. He was one of the early pioneers of chlorofluorocarbon CFCs, compounds that became widely used in industry and which were destroying the ozone layer. He also invented leaded gasoline and insisted that it was safe to use. Low stakes, but high embarrassment for Seasons Lawn Services. Those responsible for the loss of a mission to Mars in the mid-90s because a team didn't know it was supposed to be working in metric measurements. So the spaceship, all of its money, all of the planning, all of the anticipated data, poof, gone because of a stupid mistake that should have been caught by a process. In 1876, Alexander Bell, desperate for money, offered to sell his telephone invention to Western Union after proving that the device could work over their existing telegraph lines. The price was $100,000. Western Union declined, saying the telephone was just a toy and would never amount to anything. Russia selling Alaska for $7.2 million. 2 cents an acre. Blockbuster not investing in Netflix for peanuts. It killed them and the rest is history. Chernobyl was pretty bad. Everybody who told the Mongol Empire to go fuck themselves instead of just handing over the keys. Assuming the German forces would take Moscow before the onset of winter in 1941. Surprised no one mentioned the guy who left the door to Constantinople open. Hitler invading Russia. Napoleon and the steam engine. A ship that sails by bonfires under its decks. Away with you, visionist. If not for his short-sightedness, we would likely see French be the dominant language in the West. Many are increasingly of the opinion that they'd all made a big mistake in coming down from the trees in the first place. And some say that even the trees had been a bad move, and that no one should ever have left the oceans. The leaders of Europe in the years leading up to WWI. Me, according to my brain at 3 a.m. when I'm trying to sleep. I'd have to say the person who thought it was a good idea to launch New Coke in the 80s. It's like they took the phrase "if it ain't broke, don't fix it" and turned it into a challenge. LOL. Banishing Julius Caesar to Rhodes. Big time mistake. For Seasons Landscaping Giuliani. The Great Emu War. The Australian military lost a war to a bunch of emus. Douglas Wrong Way Corrigan. Flew to Ireland instead of Long Beach, California by mistake. The UK Conservative Party filming their party celebrations while telling everyone to stay at home in your own bubble during lockdown. Zimmerman telegraph from WW1. Not only was his plan to get Mexico to fight the US discovered, when he was questioned on it he doubled down instead of denying it. In the beginning, God created the universe. This has made a lot of people very angry, and is widely regarded as a bad move. Douglas Adams. I heard thus from my Latin teacher, but IDK the exact details in a more. Anyways, the story is that one researcher spilled coffee on a classic text, making it impossible to research further. David Cameron was responsible for Brexit because he wanted to try win over a few nutters in his own party and ended up fucking an entire country for generations. France spending the equivalent of 20 on new trains that were too wide to fit through tunnels in the country was a pretty dumb mistake. Edit, I'm wrong. It was Spain spending the equivalent of 276 for trains too wide for their tunnels. Russia sold Alaska to the US for only 2 cents an acre. They thought it was just a useless tundra. That one fish that grew legs. What an asshole. However, that was who started a land war in Asia. I drank what? Socrates. Chris Knight. Neville Chamberlain by thinking he could negotiate with Hitler. Napoleon going to Russia with somewhere around 500k troops and returning with roughly 10k. The saying goes never invade Russia in winter. But the worst of their losses happened in July and quite a few were from disease and heat exhaustion. Water supplies ran low in the July heat wave. Dying of heat exhaustion in Russia of all places. The folks who initiated the fatal test at the Chernobyl power plant. Rudy Giuliani. For Seasons Landscaping press conference. Still can't believe that happened. Surely there must be an argument for Chairman Mao and the Great Leap Forward of 1958-1962. Specifically, the drastic culling of grain-eating sparrows. It transpired that while sparrows eat a little grain, they were also great for keeping the locust population down, and locusts eat a lot of grain. The Great Sparrow Genocide was followed by a locust-devastated harvest and huge famine. Arguably, Archduke Ferdinand's driver. The burning of the Library of Alexandria. Edward marched on Jerusalem fearing a long siege. Saladin ordered his army to retreat to Damascus fearing Edward and his crusaders would slaughter them if they tried to resist. Edward thought Saladin was attacking, retreated all the way to France and got shot in the eye by a French sniper. Only guy to lose a war to a rooting enemy. Constantinople falling a day before the Ottomans were planning on abandoning the siege because someone forgot to lock a door is up there too. The guy who nuked himself with radiation because he tried to use a screwdriver to prop open a nuclear core. It slipped. That guy who was ranting about Obamacare on Facebook and then told everyone that he was different because he had insurance through the Affordable Care Act. The guy who went in against a Sicilian when death was on the line. Though this fact is slightly less well known than the others posted here. For example, getting involved in a land war in Asia is a more common and more classic type of blunder. The original Brexit referendum has got to be up there. Icetown. Lighthearted Adams, the guy who came up with the idea to strap a bunch of tiny bombs to bats, put them in a fridge to induce early hibernation, then release them on unsuspecting cities in an attempt to win World War II. Some bats woke up too early and flew miles from their designated target before exploding, others woke up too late. A colony even escaped and blew up an air hangar base with the US general's car in it. This is off the top of my head. Someone feel free to add on or correct me. General George Custer. David Cameron, 2016, Brexit vote. Napoleon III. Just his entire life. But especially his coup attempts. He was a complete and utter fuck-up who, when his ragtag band of idiots got too drunk to operate, attempted to kill himself but fucked that up, too. Total dipshit. Pete Carroll passing on the 1-yard line Super Bowl against the Pats. Japan attacking Pearl Harbor. Did they really think that was going to end well? Putin invading Ukraine. Those who allowed Rupert Murdoch to broadcast in their country. Rudy Giuliani and the Four Seasons Landscaping press conference. That guy who sold Bitcoin for pizza. In high school, a hot and popular girl was waving to someone behind me and I thought she was waving at me and I waved back. Some stupid fucker bought Twitter for $44 billion. Flat earthers. I will say no more. Probably whoever said, "Hey, let's attack Pearl Harbor." The American People Electoral College elected a reality TV personality as president in 2016. Columbus discovering America thinking it was India and because of that giving the name Indians to Native Americans.